Paruyr Sevak, patron saint of Armenian poetry. Paruyr Sevak was no ordinary man. He was born Paruyr Sevak on January 24th, 1924, right here in the picturesque village of Zangakatun, near the Iranian border. Sevak was by all accounts a literary genius who excelled as a poet, a translator, and a literary critic. He was born over 100 years ago into an illiterate family of agricultural workers. But he was incredibly bright, and he was the first in his clan who learned to read and to write.
You see, immediately after he was born, Sevak's parents gave him away to his uncle and his wife, who did not have their own children. Sevak didn't find out about this until he was 5 years old, when the couple divorced.
And it's remarkable that this didn't traumatize the boy in the least as he buried himself in his studies. Part of his success, you see, lay in his almost superhuman work ethic. Sevak was preternaturally studious. For example, he learned both Middle and Classical Armenian as fluently as you or I speak modern-day Armenian or English.
When he would come to the village, he only spoke our Urmia dialect. He didn't use any literary words. He used to behave like an ordinary man, like one of us.
He had a friend with the same name who once told him that his poetry was hard to understand. Sevak replied that when the right time comes, people will understand it. I guess now the time has come.
And villagers here still remember Sevak, and they recite his poetry with pride, the way people back home might get together for poetry slams.
Արդեն 10 տարի, 110 տարի, 1010 տարի, ես վախենում եմ, շատ եմ վախենում, բույրավոր ու բուծ հավատացյալից, բույրատեսկ ու սուծ հավատացյալից, եթե Աստված եք, փչեցեք նրանց մոմերը բոլոր, մարեցեք նրանց կանթեղներն ամեն, հանգցրեք նրանց ջահերն այլազան, որ եղեցի լույս, և ոչ մի վանքում մի ընդունեցեք նրանց մատաղը, որ իրենց չէ, այլ գոհացված է, մերժեցեք նրանց զոհն էլ խոստացյալ, որ զոհ չգնա, ինքը հավատ է։
Ես օգնեցի ամենքին, ես ինձ միայն չօգնեցի, որով տվի բոլորին միայն ինքս օգնեցի, խորհուրդներով իմ խելոք խելքավաքած գնացի, քանի սեճանքում ես էլի գիժ մնացի, ով հանդիպեց ստացավ մի թազգինի ինձանից, լոք ես գինի չմպեցի ինձ սեփական ընձանից, ինչ եմ եղել ոչ ճանքում, հարսանքավոր ու կավոր, մինչ ամենքից հարավել ինձ էր օջախարկավոր, ուզախշում եմ ես մի պահ սեր ու բարիք եմ ծրել, մինչ դեռ պետք էր սեր այցել, իսկ բարիքը վաճառել։
You know, walking through row after row of these beautiful village orchards of apricot, apple, and walnut trees, dotted with these bright orange and purple fruit, you can easily understand why Sevak was so attached to this place. It's like a quiet little piece of heaven on earth. This long tree-colored walkway here leads to a large rectangular building known as the Sevak House Museum. And as you enter the building, you're greeted by this colorful and dramatic mural painted by the renowned Armenian artist Sarkis Muradian. And then as you go along, we have a recreation of his wedding. An interesting fact, this woman here is actually not a real woman. She is all the women he ever loved. Moving along, you're greeted by scenes of anguished Armenian genocide refugees, followed by a depiction of the dictators who destroyed the world as Sevak knew it. So wearing a fez, we have Talat Pasha, the butcher and architect of the Armenian genocide. And next to him, someone you'll have no trouble recognizing, the mustachioed Adolf Hitler, followed by Joseph Stalin. But Sevak didn't limit his attacks to dictators alone. He was also an outspoken critic of the everyday Soviet regime and its abuses of power. On the night of June 17, 1971, Sevak was driving home with his family not far from here, when his car suddenly veered off the road and crashed. The poet and his wife were instantaneously killed, but his children somehow miraculously survived. While his family today insists that the crash was just an unfortunate accident that took place on a winding country road, many people still insist that the poet was in fact murdered by Soviet authorities.
Zabel Yesayan, Vahan Totovents, and Yechishe Charents. Those three writers were indeed murdered by Soviet authorities because they lived in Stalin's time. They were exiled and tortured. But Sevak lived in a different, less repressive time, that is to say when Khrushchev and Brezhnev led the USSR. I have done my research, and I know for certain that there is no evidence indicating that it was a planned assassination. There is much evidence that points to a tragedy.
Be that as it may, Paruyr Sevak's spirit and his words live on today, here in the hills of the village that nurtured him in his youth, as well as in the hearts of Armenians throughout the world.